Back in the mid-'80s, I had been reading personal development books for years. Like many of you, every time I hear about Think and Grow Rich, or The Magic of Thinking Big, or The Richest Man in Babylon, and all these different books, and I'd read them, and then I was really depressed, like in 1986. I just remember being really, really depressed. And things weren't going, like any area of my life, if I looked at it, it was just nothing was working. In fact, it was so bad, I was living in a rental. My rent was $200 a month, and I had 2 roommates. And I was living in a rental in Old Town Tempe, and there were railroad tracks behind our home there, where we were renting. And it was a drizzly night, gray night, kind of cool and chilly, and there was a little bit of wind. And I wasn't going to do anything desperate, but I was just really depressed, and I decided to walk the railroad tracks. Seriously. I walked out there, I started walking. There's a real inspiring place to get motivated, right? And design your future. So I walked the railroad tracks for like 4 miles in the rain. And just contemplating, what am I going to do? Well, I started to reflect on these books that I'd read, and I finally thought, you know what I really need to do? And I know Cody, when he tells his story, he talks about a defining moment like this with send-out cards. I don't know if you're going to share that today, but where there was a defining moment where he actually sat on an airplane and he pulled out his I am cards. Well, what I did was the next morning I got up, I called in, and we had this thing called time without pay at American West Airlines, and I called and I said we called it a time without pay, WOP, WOP day, so we took the WOP day. And I called and I said, I need that day off. I need the day off. And so I went to the office store, and I got a blank journal and a blue felt tip pen. And I had past benefits. I could get on an airplane, and I'd never been to the Grand Canyon. I'd lived in Arizona for a couple of years, and I'd heard about how beautiful it was. And I flew the little puddle jumper to the Grand Canyon. I got off, walked through this, got to the parking lot, walked through this parking lot towards the rim of the Grand Canyon, and I got to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and I looked down. I mean, it just like, it almost caused me, I got chills. It's so it's so beautiful out there. You can't, if you've never been there before, it's like there's no picture, no video that will ever capture the beauty of the Grand Canyon. And what I did is I decided to walk away from the rim into the forest. So I took my journal and my blue felt tip pen, and I walked for a few miles into the forest, and I found a giant oak tree. Now this was a much more inspiring place than the railroad tracks. Right? I found this oak tree, and I sat down on the ground. I was probably 3 miles into the forest. I sat down on the ground and leaned back against this oak tree with my blue felt tip pen. And I started doing what all these personal development books suggested that I'd never done before. I started writing the story of my life in the present tense, as if it had already happened. I set aside all my doubts, my fears, what was possible, didn't matter, the past didn't matter. I was going to write my life, the story of my life today, as if it was already done. And I wrote all about where I would be living, who I'd be hanging out with, what I would be doing, where my income would be, how I would be feeling, where I would be traveling to, my friends, the parties that I would throw with my friends, the relationships I had. I wrote it all out, as if it had already happened. And then what happened was that the clouds started building up. In Arizona, in the mountains, you might have seen that before. When the clouds build up, they build up real fast. And the temperature dropped. It dropped from like 70 degrees down to the 40s in a matter of minutes. And it was getting really cold. I wasn't dressed for it. So I took the book, and I held it up close to me like this because I didn't want to get it wet. And I started walking back towards the rim of the Grand Canyon. And it started to rain. And then the rain turned into like drizzle and sleet. So it was icy. And the book is getting soaking wet, and I'm walking back like this through the forest, like this. And I get to the rim of the Grand Canyon, and there's the Bright Angel Lodge. And I walk into the Bright Angel Lodge, and there's this giant fireplace. They have this huge fireplace with a big blazing fire in there. And I sat down on these colorful cushions in front of the fire with my blue felt tip pen, and I continued to write the story of my life. And I filled that book. And then I remember what I was supposed to do is like read from that book every day. Because your mind doesn't know the difference. Your subconscious mind is designed to attract the things that you imagine. It's designed for that. And I read that if I would just read from this book that I'd written, from the story of my life, that over time, that subconsciously I would begin to attract the things that would lead me to that lifestyle. Well, I had 2 cinder blocks and a piece of plywood in this rental as my nightstand. I put the book on the nightstand. And every night I would pick up the book and I would read a couple pages from this book that I'd written. And then after a year had gone by, nothing in the book had happened. Nothing. And I remember being really frustrated, and I remember going into my closet. There was a box in my closet, and I just tossed the book into the closet, into this box. 1996, 8 years later, I'm unpacking in Pine, Arizona, my first dream home, with a big wraparound deck looking into the forest, into the pine forest. The air is so clean and crisp that when you breathe, it almost hurts your lungs. It's so clean. You look up at the sky, and at night, the stars look just like, the Milky Way looks just like a streak of smoke. I'd have wildlife that I don't shoot. That would walk through my yard. Anyway. It was just heaven on earth. And as I'm unpacking boxes, I pull one box out of the truck and I open it up, and sitting on the top of the box is that book. And I open it up, and I start thumbing through the pages, and tears came to my eyes. Because everything that I'd written in that book came true. Everything. So you know what, I was just playing around a little bit earlier today, and I decided to write a couple of pages. I need to update that book. I mean, I've done it a few times, but I decided to write a couple of pages, and I'll read to you what it sounds like. Would you like to hear? Yeah. So this is my future right here. And I know it works. You just write it, and you read it, and then you set it aside. Let go of it. Just focus on it for a while. I'll just read a couple quick pages. I wrote these today. I step off my doorstep, and I walk down the stone path lined by flowers and trees. A light breeze is blowing in from the south. I step onto the helicopter pad and load our backpacks into the helicopter. I help Sierra and the kids into the helicopter and assist each one of them with their seatbelts and headsets. I fire up the chopper, quickly check the weather on the radio, and we lift off the pad. I hover the helicopter through the large meadow, and we're in awe of the miracle of flight and the love we have for each other. Taking day trips and landing on random pinnacles for afternoon picnics is one of our favorite things to do. Our team is in over 100 countries now, and we're adding 2,000 to 10,000 new team members per month. 1 to 3 new executives are promoting each week around the world. I host a special executive retreat each month at our home in the mountains. Hearing the stories is what makes it all worthwhile. People love being part of our team because we attract great people that really care about people, and we like to have fun. One of my favorite moments is sitting around a fire on a cool night in the outdoor courtyard, sharing the crazy stories of struggles and successes. So it's in the present tense, as if it's already happened. Do you hear that? And you read it, and your mind doesn't know that it hasn't happened. And you will manifest it over time, as long as you continue to focus on it. And just set it aside. So that's what this journal is all about. There's stories and questions in the journal that'll cause you to think about how you want your life to be. It'll really help you to dream again, and you can just write on the pages that are in there. And this becomes the story of your life. So play around with it. We don't have any here. They can order them, right? Yeah, through the company, through Eagle One Publishing. So, thank you very much, you guys. It's been great. Love it.